These are the Jeep Wrangler features that make thousands of owners want to throw their keys across the parking lot. From constant beeping to unwanted interruptions, here's why they exist and why they drive everyone crazy. Every single one of these systems was engineered on purpose, and the reasons behind them reveal a war between the freedom Jeep promised you and the regulations that refuse to let you have it. Picture this: a Jeep Wrangler parked under a sky full of stars, deep in the Vermont woods. The campfire is out, the tent is zipped, and just as you settle in, the LED halo around the headlights refuses to go dark. It stays lit, glowing like a beacon, because the ambient light sensor decided it is still twilight. Never mind that you are 50 miles from the nearest street lamp. The system threshold is set at about 5,000 lux, so even a sliver of moonlight can trick the sensor. The result, the daytime running lights keep pulsing, draining the battery and turning your off-grid escape into a parking lot light show. That is just the start. Back in suburbia, the story flips. Owners step out of their Jeeps after a grocery run, arms full, and the moment they hit the lock button on the key fob, a sharp electronic chirp slices through the peace. This is not just a polite beep. The sound comes from a tiny speaker built into the door latch, designed to be loud enough for anyone nearby to notice, even if you are in a crowded trailhead or a foggy morning parking lot. The panic button takes it further. Hold it down and the horn circuit fires off 3 rapid blasts, echoing through the neighborhood. Stellantis engineers claim this is for safety and security, but to most owners, it feels like their Jeep is tattling on them every time they come or go. These little surprises are not accidents. Each chirp, each persistent light, comes from a web of software rules buried deep in the Wrangler's brain. The ambient light sensor decides when you are allowed to go stealth, but its calibration rarely matches real-world darkness. The fob's audio feedback is supposed to assure you the doors are locked, but it is also there to satisfy security guidelines and remind you that Jeep is watching out for you, even when you would rather blend in. For owners who bought into the Jeep myth of total control and open-air adventure, these reminders feel like a digital leash. The Jeep is always making decisions, always chiming in, and it is not always on your side. A Wrangler's digital brain never seems to sleep. Even when the trail is quiet, the dashboard is awake, ready to remind you about every little thing it thinks you've forgotten. The Uconnect system is the ringleader here. Let the oil change interval roll past, and that maintenance pop-up will reappear like clockwork, no matter how many times you tap it away. The secret is buried in the software. Every 200 kilometers, the system refreshes its non-volatile memory flag. Until a dealer or a scan tool performs a full reset, that reminder returns, trip after trip, like a stubborn check engine light that's learned to hold a grudge. For owners, it's more than a gentle nudge. Take a cross-country drive or a weekend off-road trip, and the pop-up will cover your navigation screen, blocking maps and music until you acknowledge it. Some drivers joke that their Jeep is more persistent than their dentist about regular checkups. The logic behind this is simple. Stellantis wants to make sure nobody skips a service interval, both to protect the warranty and to keep emissions in check. But the result is a digital babysitter that never takes a holiday. The reminders do not stop at scheduled maintenance. Door locks have their own agenda. Once the Wrangler hits 10 miles per hour and all doors are closed for just 2 seconds, the body control module snaps the lock shut. It is meant to keep you safe from theft and accidental opening, but for anyone making frequent stops like a courier or someone loading gear on the move, the doors will lock and relock over and over, no matter how many times you protest. The logic is hardwired, speed triggers, proximity sensors, and a timer that cannot be reasoned with. Owners have shared stories of running back and forth to their Jeep, arms full of packages, only to be locked out again and again. The technical explanation is always the same: safety, security, and service compliance. But for drivers who bought a Jeep to escape the feeling of being managed, these relentless reminders and lock cycles feel less like protection and more like a digital hall monitor. Each pop-up, each auto-lock, is a small reminder that in the modern Wrangler, software always gets the last word. Auto Park doesn't ask, it acts. Crack the door while idling, and within 0.3 of a second, the powertrain control module throws the Jeep into park. The system reads the door ajar sensor, checks speed, and if you are under 0.5 mile per hour and the door is open, it seizes control. The goal is to prevent rollaways. On paper, it makes sense. On a steep trail, it's a jolt that can break your rhythm or stop you cold mid-climb. Owners talk about losing momentum at the worst moment, the Jeep lurching to a halt just as they are threading through rocks or mud. Electronic stability control is just as blunt. Bosch's ESP8 lets the wheels slip up to 15% before it clamps down. That sounds generous until you hit loose sand or mud, and suddenly the system yanks back engine torque. The instant the slip threshold is crossed, ESC cuts power and pulses the brakes, sometimes leaving you stuck where you most need traction. On pavement, it's a safety net. Off-road, it's a digital overseer that does not understand the terrain. Lane keep assist adds another layer. Above 30 miles per hour, the Continental camera scans for lane markings. Drift too far, and the wheel tugs back, sometimes in a snowstorm, sometimes on a gravel road where lines do not exist. When snow obscures the lanes, the camera gets confused, and the steering wheel jitters as if the Jeep is second-guessing every move. Drivers post videos of lane keep assist, nudging the wheel at the worst time, or braking when radar mistakes a mailbox for a stopped car. Forward collision. Warning jumps in with pop-ups and chimes. The radar flags static objects, parked cars, signposts, and flashes warnings across the Uconnect screen, hijacking navigation with bright red alerts. Even on a calm drive, drivers fight off phantom threats. Each system is built for safety, but in practice, these takeovers chip away at the confidence that once defined the Wrangler. A Wrangler halts at a busy intersection. The light turns red, and the engine shuts off with a faint tremor. Seconds later, the starter grinds, the engine catches, and the Jeep surges forward as green returns. This is engine stop-start, designed to save up to 8% in city fuel, and a cornerstone for meeting EPA and CAFE targets. On paper, it is progress. In practice, owners call it sabotage. The system tracks coolant temperature, battery charge, and brake pressure, always searching for the right instant to kill the engine. But the timing rarely fits reality. Mechanics see starter motors wearing out far sooner than before, especially in cold states. The auxiliary battery, meant to cushion the blow, often fails by 60,000 miles. For those who remember simpler engines, the constant shutdowns feel like the Wrangler is fighting its driver. The real breaking point comes at home. Step out of a running Wrangler with the key in your pocket, and the horn erupts. 3 sharp blasts, no matter the hour. Whether it is midnight in a quiet suburb or dawn at a campsite, the Jeep announces your mistake to everyone nearby. Stellantis calls it a safety measure, warning that the engine is still running without the key inside. But for owners, it is public humiliation. The horn is tuned to meet federal FMVSS 111 standards, blasting at least 110 decibels, louder than most lawnmowers, impossible to ignore. Forums fill with stories of neighbors jolted awake, children startled, and drivers fumbling for explanations. ESS helps Stellantis rack up regulatory credits, keeping fleet averages in line with the law. The triple honk is hardwired, triggered by a 1-second loss of the key while the engine runs. There is no simple way to disable it. Settings are buried, and even dealership techs admit defeat. What was meant to be a tool for freedom becomes a daily frustration. For many, these moments, engine stalls and horn blasts, mark the tipping point where control slips away and regulation takes the wheel. Every year, more software stands between Jeep owners and the sense of control that defines the brand. Federal rules keep adding layers, but the Jeep spirit resists compromise. For now, true freedom means knowing your machine and fighting for the right to drive it your way. Let me know your take below.